Hello and welcome to another episode of Set Musings. So I've really been looking forward to this. I probably say that every episode, but yeah, Shards of Alara. So this is the first set in the Shards block. So that was Shards of Alara, Conflux and Alara Reborn. And I remember this set sort of after the fact. So I think I've mentioned before, I first started buying Magic cards around 10th edition, and then just after that I was in the process of moving from the UK to Nova Scotia, so my focus was elsewhere and I didn't really get back into buying Magic product until I suppose World Wake, around that time. So Shards of Alara came out in 2008, as you can see up here. So that was during that period, and so my exposure to this was a couple of places. One was watching Magic tournaments on YouTube back in the day, and obviously around the time of World Wake release this would have still been in Standard. So you would have had Shards block cards cropping up in Standards, including cards from Shards of Alara. But also, I remember, I think when I opened that very first Deck Builder's Toolkit, that actually had one pack of Conflux in it, bizarrely. Because, like I said, the blocks would have still been in Standard. It wouldn't have rotated out quite at that point, although it would have been pretty close, which is always bizarre as to why they included Conflux, Conflux booster in those early Deck Builders Toolkit, seeing as they were going to go out of rotation pretty quick. But yeah, so yeah, strong memories of this particular set, but like indirect memories. And it wasn't until a lot later that I started opening packs of this. So, what are we looking out for when we go through here? So, 249 cards. This was a move to slightly smaller set sizes. So, although this is a large set, it's not up near the sort of 300 cards of previous expansions. So, we're down to 249. We've got 101 commons, 60 uncommons, 53 rares and 15 mythic rares. So this is the first set specifically with mythic rares in it, and then we've got 20 basic land as well. This was the set where we saw the return of Planeswalker cards and the first time we saw multicoloured Planeswalkers. The set very much revolved around, or was encouraging you, I suppose, to do 3-colour play. There were also coloured artefacts in the set and large creatures. So those were the sort of very broad themes and mechanics that we had in this set. 3-colour play, coloured artefacts, large creatures. In terms of keywords, ability words to look out for, we've got Cycling, Devour, Exalted and Unearth, and I'll explain in a moment roughly how that maps to the different sort of 3 colours in addition to the large creatures and other things. So released October the 3rd 2008. There was a lot of people on the design and development team. In fact, the design team was the same as the development team, but a lot of people involved. The set symbol, the idea is here, this represents the 5 shards. So we've got it split into 5 3-colour shards. So, what to look out for, and I'm going to go through the shards individually. I'm going to slice through them in a moment. So we've got Bant, which gravitated around Exalted. And as I go through these, you'll see the different colour combinations. We've got Esper, which is coloured artefacts. Grixis, which was Unearth. Jund, which was Devour. And Naya, which had a theme of power 5 or greater. So large creatures. So with Bant, so there was primary and 2 secondary colours, and the way it was organised, if you look at the back of a magic card, is often the way I illustrate this. You had, obviously the colours going around in Wooburg order, and so a shard is 3 colours side by side. And I'm just going to go down here to the section where we've got the colour cards. You can see as I'm scrolling down quickly, you can see here some cards already referencing that. We had a number of two colour cards as well. There was no watermark that to sort of give you hints. Although, of course, for the non-3 colour cards, but there were certain cards by their abilities, mechanics, whatever, that you could sort of associate with the 3 colour combinations, even though they weren't 3 colour cards. So, white, blue, black, which is Esper. So blue is the primary colour and white and black are the secondary colours. So the secondary colours are allied colours to the primary. And they're a shard because they're in order of sort of against Wooburg, white, blue, black, as opposed to, say, a wedge where you'd have the primary colour and then the 2 enemy colours to form, again, if you get the 5 Wooburg colours organised in a circle, it's the shape that you get. So this particular set organising like that gives you a shard. With wedge 3 colour combinations, which were other sets had wedge shaped colour combinations, you would get the 3 colours organised in a wedge shape. So we've got Esper colours here, white, blue, black. Then if you go down, you'll see, jumping ahead a bit too far, we've got Grixis, which is blue, black, red. Then we've got Jund, which is black, red, green. And Naya, red, green, white, and Bant, green, white, blue. And we'll be going through all of these different elements through slicing and dicing, but I thought I wanted to just get that overview out the way so you sort of know what you're looking for. And you can see there are a number of 2 colour cards here, as I've said, a lot of monocolour cards, and a lot of cards that you'll recognise, and several that have been reprinted over the years. And as we go through and look at EDH popular cards and expensive cards, you'll probably start to see which ones have a tendency to be reprinted and which ones aren't. Again, remember I said that we had mythics in here, so this sort of orange colour. So gold is your rare, that hasn't changed, but mythic rare is this copper orange colour. But I suppose closer to copper. It just depends again on a lot of things, on different printings, and anybody that's had to deal with the different set symbols and the different mythics the different rarities will know that sometimes it's not always that easy to spot. There's ad nauseum. So, and again, real interesting artwork. Apparently, what I think they did with the artists was they got a certain group of artists to work on certain of the shards. And I mentioned cycling was a keyword ability in here. Of course, that was a returning keyword ability. Okay, so let's have a look and go through this in a little bit more detail. So, I said that mythics were a new thing in this set. We'd seen planeswalkers before, but what they were doing now is printing the planeswalkers at mythic, along with a number of other creatures and legendary creatures and artifact creatures also printed at mythic. So we had 15 mythics, and you'll also notice that several of these were 3 colour as well. I'm just looking to see, actually, I think all of the non-planeswalkers were 3 colour. So multicolour was a thing. So out of the total of 249 cards, we had 57 multicoloured cards. So that's both 2 and 3 colour. Don't know, I don't see it here. There wasn't any 5 colour things thrown in, but you can see there were some pretty invested casting costs. Once you're in the area of 3 colours where you're paying 2, maybe 3 mana of a certain colour, then yeah, you're pretty invested in 3 colours. So going through, no real particular order here. So just banned first. I suppose more than anything, it's really going in order of the central colour, the primary colour. So we've got the white one here. And you can see we had, not a ton of cards in each particular colour, but obviously you would use them in combination with the monocolour cards and the 2 colour cards. So we have Bant Charm, we've got Ultimatums, we've got a legendary here, and you can see we're pretty much covering all the rarities. And we've got some exalted going on. There's Esper. So blues are primary, white and black are our secondary. Again, you'll get to see these from a different slice when we start to go through the cycles. But I think you can already see the cycle's starting to pop out. So we've got 7 cards in this particular shard. In terms of colours, obviously, like I've said, as we'll go through, you'll see 2 colour and monocolour cards that possibly have particular shards ability or mechanic that's associated with it. Oh, and the Esper one, sorry, I jumped ahead a bit there. That was you can see there's a number of artifacts in here. So artifacts were a thing. Grixis was unearthed. So we've got a couple of cards, maybe 3 here that care about unearth. Jund had Devour. But interestingly enough, we don't specifically see the Devour ability in the 3 colour cards. But I'm just looking here, you can see, because Devour played around with counters, there was some counter stuff going on here. And also as a result of Devour, you were sacking creatures, so, you know, there's a bit of graveyard stuff going on. Naya. So, large creatures, power 5 or greater. Naya green is the primary, red and white are the secondaries. So no surprise here. There's references to higher power, or giving it higher power and toughness, or the creature itself has high power or toughness. So, coloured artefacts. And you can see here we've got 33 cards that are artefacts but aren't colourless artefacts. So I've sort of paired those out. 33 of those, and you can see looks like they're fairly heavily represented in some obvious colours. So you're going to get it biasing towards Esper. So white, blue, black, and then the combinations thereof. So 2 of the colours from that, from Esper, and then the 3 colour ones, or some of the 3 colour ones. There's our power 5 or greater. I've sorted them by power here, just so you can get some idea of how powerful they get. So really sort of topping off around 8/8 there. If I organise it by colour instead, you can sort of see what colours are included here. With power, of course, it's a bit not quite so specific, so we're going to see, I think here, powerful creatures amongst all of the colours. So we've got white, blue, black, red and green. But again, you can see a number of these from Naya, green, red, white, but also the other colours as well. So that was a sort of general theme beyond just what gravitated around the particular shard. I also wanted to just highlight toughness greater than 4, so 5 or greater toughness as well. We've got some cycling. We've got 13 cards with cycling, which you can see here were spread across different colours, so not necessarily tied to a specific shard. We've got Devour, black, red and green, and as you saw earlier, that's not specifically referenced on any of the 3 or 2 colour cards. And then we've got Exalted, so 12 Exalted cards. And again, most of those occur on the monocolour cards, but they are in the appropriate colours for banned. Unearth, there's 13 Unearth cards. Blue, black, red. So that's Grixis. And now onto the cycles. So we've got some common 1-drops. They're 1 mana. They're commons, but they're also 1/1s. This is very interesting, the Wild Cattle. So obviously encouraging you to play green, red, white. Which is Naya. So that sort of scales nicely, depending on what mana you have out. In fact, what I should have done, let me just go back here, just to explain that I was mesmerised. So, just so we're clear, if this, this is a set you're not familiar with in terms of the keywords and abilities. So we've got cycling, which you discard the card and then draw it, and there's a cost incurred to that. So you can either just cast the card usually, or you can cycle it for its cycling cost. But sometimes they'll have an ability on it which gets triggered when you cycle it. And we've got some cycles to talk about for that. With Devour, so when it comes into play, you may sacrifice any number of creatures, and the creature comes into play with twice that many 1/1 counters in the case of Devour 2, or if it's Devour 1, then just the number of +1/+1 counters. So the Devour and the number is how many times that's sort of multiplied up, the number of +1/+1 counters. Exalted, so whenever a creature you control attacks alone, that creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn. And Unearth, so you have unearth and then a cost, and for the cost you can return the card from the graveyard to play. It gains haste, but then you have to remove it from the game at the end of the turn, or if it would leave play. And the unearth occurs at sorcery speed, and you can see there's quite a bit of variability to these. So you just cast it like normal. At some point it'll end up in the graveyard, and then you can unearth it from the graveyard. So there was our cycle of 1/1 common creatures for 1 mana. Cycle of Battle Mages. So they're uncommon 2/2 human creatures. They cost 2 and a particular colour, and they have 2 activated abilities corresponding to each of their particular shards' allied colours. So Band, Esper, Grixis, Jund and Naya. We have Cycle of Heralds. So uncommon 1/1 creatures. They have a cost of single mana of the appropriate colour, and they have an activated ability of 2 and then that colour, and you sacrifice a creature of a particular colour, plus 1 each of its allied colours, and that allows you to search the library for a corresponding noble creature, and we'll get on to what the cycle was there, but you can see them named. So this one does searches for, tutors for Imperial Archangel, this one Sphinx Sovereign, Prince of Thralls, Hellkite Overlord is the red one that tutors for, and then Godshire, the green one. But you can see you have to pay a cost, you have to sacrifice a green creature, a white creature and a blue creature. So again, representing the shards. Now we've got allied ability creatures, so 2 cycles at common, so there's 2 cycles here, with creatures having an activated ability with an allied colour cost. One goes clockwise around the colour wheel and the other goes counterclockwise. So we've got white and green, white and blue, blue and white, blue and black, black and blue, black and red. Some of them might have additional cost because of an activation cost on some of the set keyword abilities as well. Red and green, red and black, and then green and red, green and white. But what's interesting is you can see a number of these have reference or tie into a particular shard's theme. So we've got cycle of common creatures. They require 1 mana each of the 2 allied colours to cast. White, blue, blue, black, red, green. Black, red, red, green, green, white. Plus some additional stuff. This one's got Shroud on it. This one has Death Touch and Flying. Actually, the first one has First Strike as well. The black, red one has Trample. Red, green has Haste. And the green white one has Vigilance and can also be tapped for green mana. Cycle of common allied colour spells. So the other ones were creatures, these are non-creature spells. And you can see they have two effects. These are pretty powerful when you look at what they do. So we've got some uncommon allied coloured spells, a cycle of those, but then following on we also have a cycle of enemy coloured spells. So white blue we have Kish of the Amisha, Thought Cutter Ancient is our blue black, Blood Cultist our black red, San Bright Surge red green, Kasali Ambusher green white, and then the uncommon ones, Tidalo Sculler, Swerve, Necrogenesis, Bull Ceridon and Jessian Infiltrator. And you can see they're both creature spells and non-creature spells. But the common thing is they all have just the two colours in them. Allied colours and then enemy colours. So on to 3 colour cycles now. We've got common tri-coloured creatures. You can see they all include colours from the appropriate shard, one for each of the shards. You can see here as well the tie-in, in some cases, to the particular shard, keyword ability or theme mechanic, whatever. So here we've got artifacts with Kinneret Creeper, not quite so with, these are what the Grixis colours, so it was unearthed. So yeah, we don't really see that tie quite so much to unearth. Carrion Thrash is the Jund one. Now Devour, so there is a bit of graveyard shenanigans going on here. So with Naya, we're carrying about 5 power or greater cards. And then here we've got banned colours and it's exalted. So 4 out of 5, it's not bad. Uncommon creatures that have a mana cost that includes the 3 colours. So we've seen the common ones, we've seen the uncommon ones. And then we have a cycle of mythic, rare, legendary creatures that have a mana cost again with the 3 colours in them. So these are at mythic and they're all legendaries. So there are a cycle of legends within the shards. I mentioned earlier something about a noble creature. So they're mythic rare creatures with, again, a colour combination from the shards, and they were referenced as part of an earlier cycle. Which I'm going to try and find now. So they're the heralds. So that's what the herald's called. The herald's heralded. We have a cycle of panoramas. You can see here you can tap them to add colours to your mana pool, and then, or you can one tap them and then sack them and search out for plains, islands or swamps in the case of Esper. And you can see the basic lands it looks for are tied to the particular shard colour wise. We've got also another land cycle, the shard lands or tri lands. They're uncommon triple lands. They come into play tapped, and they can be tapped for one of the 3 colours of mana. There's also, again, because of trying to fix for 3 colours here, we've got a cycle of mana rocks, the obelisks, 1 for each of the shards, 3 to cast, and then they tap to add the appropriate colour combinations, or one of each of the colour combinations of that particular shard. Cycle of resounding spells. Common instant or sorcery spells that have a base effect and can be cycled for 5, and then the 3 colour shard combination for twice of the base effect. So here we have cycling tied to an amplification of an effect. Cycle of charms. they're in the colours of the particular shard, and they have 3 modes. Cycle of ultimatums, 1 for each of the shards, have a very, very powerful effect, but they're pretty high casting cost. You can see here we've got 7 to cast, and well, you're pretty heavily invested, but particularly in the primary colour. And also a cycle of rare tricoloured spells. So we've seen cycles of commons, cycle of uncommons, cycles of mythics, and now we've got a cycle of rares, all of which have the appropriate shard in their casting cost. Also, and these were sort of mini cycles, so there were 5 cycles of 3 cards that didn't feature all of the shards necessarily. So there were 3 cards and they revolved around a particular shard. So we've got the capsules, and they were in Esper colours, so 1 for each of the Esper colours. There was a cycle of scavengers, or a 3 mini cycle, and they all had, whenever another creature dies, you may put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. So they were Jund colours. And then bizarrely, in the case of Naya, there are actually 3 mini cycles. So we've got the Naya cycling creatures, we've got the Naya druids, and the Naya soul spells. So that completely misses the other 2 shards in there. So there's no, is it Bant and Grixis in there? Yeah. So no Bant and Grixis as part of those mini cycles. There is also a mega cycle involving planeswalkers that ties sort of loosely to the colour combinations. So we've got Elspeth, which is supposedly the banned one, even though it doesn't specifically mention the colours. Tezzeret, Esper, Sarkhanval is Jund, and Ajani Vengeant is Naya. Now, the missing one, and this is a mega cycle, was in Conflux. There was a Nicol Bolas Planeswalker printed as well. Got a couple of mirrored pairs, Marble Chalice and Onyx Goblet, so they all cost 2 in a colour, so they're coloured artefacts, and they have a tap ability. 1 you gain life, the other you lose life. Or sorry, 1 you gain life, the other a target player loses life. I do love the artwork in this set for the basic lands. Going through, what would my favourites be? I actually quite like this one. It's pretty unusual artwork, but I tend to gravitate a little bit more to some of these more pastoral type pieces of artwork. So maybe these. This is an interesting one. like this as well. Oh yeah. Yeah, this is lovely artwork. Okay. I just wanted to show you here. You'll notice there's 10 non-basic lands, so we've already seen the cycles for these. So there's no other additional non-basic lands beyond the 2 cycles that we've already seen that specifically deal with the colour combinations prevalent in the set. We have also our non-planeswalker legendaries. They are also part of that cycle, so they're the only legends in here. Non-planeswalker legendaries are ones that form part of that cycle we already looked at. There's 4 planeswalkers, which again we've already seen. This is just to clarify, just in case there's any other things lurking there. And then we've got 133 creatures, and if you've seen, they're across multiple colours, multiple colour combinations, all sorts of interesting things going on. We've got some which have 3 creature subtypes in them as well, and it's a ton of interesting utility going on in this set. I always think, if you're looking for cool utility creatures in a deck, I'd always take a look at this block. There's lots of interesting stuff going on. So 11 just regular enchantments. You can see nothing in black. We've got Oblivion Rings as well in the set. So I think so far we've seen things like Ad Nauseam, Blightning, Cruel Ultimatum. You may have spotted Aether-worn Canonist, Hellkite Overlord, certainly we've seen Knight of the White Orchid, Ranger of Eos, Wild the Cattle. Some of the more notable cards, obviously things like O-Rings as well, although this was a reprint. Let me just check that. Yeah, so reprinted from Lorwyn. I quite like the original Lorwyn artwork myself, but yeah, certainly this is good as well. This is a cool in a deck. This is very cool in a deck where you have high power creatures. Again, you can see it's pretty interesting enchantments here. Then moving specifically to Enchantment Auras, because we didn't include that in the last one. It looks like we were quite close in this set to having a cycle, but not quite. So you can see here, what's interesting is 3 of them enchant creatures. One of them, it's an artifact aura creature, and this one, I know this is not unusual to see in green, we get to enchant a land, and you can see here, enchanted land is a mountain, forest and plain. So often with those land enchantments, they'll either just be generally something that helps with your mana, and they're particularly in green, and in the case of this, it does something interesting, an interesting twist based thematically with the set. 18 artifacts that aren't equipment or creatures, and you'll notice a number of them are coloured artifacts. The ones that aren't are the obelisks in terms of the casting cost. Obviously they generate coloured mana. And then things like Leash's Mirror, Minion Reflector and Relic of Progenitus. But again, interesting set if you're building an artifact deck. 2 pieces of equipment, Quieter Spike and Sigil of Distinction. And 23 artifact creatures. And you can see they're in white, blue and black. No surprise there, considering the theme for that particular shard. 28 instants. So again, I'm not going to sub-slice these, but you can sort of see here that the sort of things we got at instant speed. We've got good old damage prevention, removal of attacking creatures, life gain, bounce, counter spells in blue here, going through the different colours, conditional counter spells, shroud, using life as a resource, damage spells in red, a number of different twists there, artifact enchantment destruction in green. Is there anything in red for that? Interestingly, there's no instant speed red artifact removal, so maybe there might be some at sorcery speed, but you might start to see some more modal stuff here in the 2 colours. So counter spell, damage, power toughness, depletion, pump. Oh, we got blue red. We got a retargeting spell. Oh yeah, now we've got all our modal spells that are all at instant speed as well. So yeah, lots of interesting modal stuff here. Gives you cool flexibility. And in Bant here you've got artifact destruction, so here's our sorceries. Interesting. So bounce back to library. Life total based on the library. Okay, we've got quite a lot of stuff with revolves around the library or library manipulation. It's interesting removal spell there in black. We've got infest. Discard, tokens. Oh, here we go. Sorcery speed, artifact or land destruction. Again, looking at the top of our library. Counters, life gain. Oh, there's blightning. So direct damage and discard. Double strike and pump. Oh, and then of course all the ultimatums are all sorcery speeds. So very powerful effects. And then back to the set as a whole. Some nice artwork here. It's funny, I'm trying to avoid again on a Friday doing another artwork episode, but every time I look through it, it's difficult to justify not doing it, because I just look at the artwork and go, yeah, some of this stuff would look up really good up close. Maybe I'll have to combine a couple of things on Friday. And of course, if you remember, there was some special boosters released after the fact. So once they got through the block, they released these foil only block boosters. I think I've opened at least one booster or several boosters on camera, and they were all foil from the certain cards from the block. So I've got a number of those, and of course the artwork on some of those really pops. Pretty creepy artwork in here as well. Some cool dragons in the set. Wow. This looks cool. That would be a good, object of meditation. The charms as well had some interesting artwork. Yeah, more dragons here, look at this. Obelisks as well. Right, there we go. I did end up scrolling all the way through there. Couldn't help it. So, most expensive card in the set. Tezzeret. $19. Unless you have obviously. So we've got later editions as well. These are reprinted, so there's a mythic edition. Modern Masters. It's in the dual decks as well. Elspeth versus Tezzeret. I definitely have this deck. Rafik, $16. Cedris, 16. Yeah, it looks like our most expensive cards are all, surprise, surprise, the mythics. So that's going to be what? Legendaries, both in terms of legendary creatures and planeswalkers. $12. So we're going down pretty quick. Oh, Ad Nauseam, just above 10. And then down to Aethersworn Canonist. We've got Godshire and so on. So it looks like the prices haven't gone super ridiculous anyway. Also, yeah, you'll see these from the vaults things as well. There we go. That's the one I was thinking of, From the Vault Dragons. So my understanding is this From the Vault Dragons actually came out before the Shards of Alara set. So this was released as one of those special From the Vaults. And then it was included in Shards of Alara. And those were all foil, if you remember. I think I've got a couple of those, although not the dragon ones. I remember the prices on those used to go through the roof, when they were released. Okay, EDH stuff. So again, we're sorting by EDH ranking for the whole set. So yeah, no surprise. High up, we've got the tricolour stuff. Got Knight of the White Orchid, Fleshbag Marauder. Ad Nauseam, we were, I think, looking at Ad Nauseam. That's because there were a number of Ad Nauseam decks in the EDHREC database. Oops, sorry about that. Yeah, Ethereum Sculptor, of course, if you're playing mono blue artifacts. Elvish Visionary, Tezzeret, and we've got Panoramas, O-Ring, Death Baron. Obviously very interesting in Skeleton or Zombie Tribal. Fungus, Mycolith, rest of our Panoramas. Naturalize, great way of getting rid of artifacts and enchantments. We've got Cancel, Dragon Fodder, Charms. Quite a spike. A lot of little pieces of equipment like this in different sets that tend to get forgotten about. This one, gives the equipped creature death touch, but then whenever a equipped creature deals combat damage to the player, that player loses half his or her life rounded up. Equipped for 3. So yeah, if you want to go sort of Voltron, it's a good one for that. And then we've got Relic as well. So 1 to cast, tap, target player removes a card in his or graveyard from the game. 1, remove Relic of Pretenders from the game, remove all graveyard from the game, draw a card. So great graveyard hate card if you've got someone that's up to graveyard shenanigans. And then what happened here is things got a little strange with the intro pack. So now we went from what were called theme decks to intro packs. I never really liked this period of intro packs, mainly because it was super confusing for new players. And the annoying thing they did was they made them 40 card decks. Now, we'd seen 40 card decks before, but that was for core sets. Well, actually, these were 41 card decks, because they contained 40 cards, and then this sort of one of them was a foil. So the 41st card was a foil. Still had 2 rares in the pack. So technically, you're getting more rares per card, I suppose. If that's a way of thinking about it. But these also... Didn't these come with a booster? I think, was it 1 booster they came with? Thinking about it. Let me just see if I can quickly look this up. Yeah, intro packs, and 1 comes with a 41 pre-constructed set, including a 4 rare exclamation mark, and include a strategy insert, a learn to play, and a 15 card random booster pack. Okay. Yes. And they kept that up for quite a while, but it apparently really confused new players, particularly people who'd popped along to F&M, so the story goes, and had bought an intro pack thinking they could take part in F&M because they didn't have a deck, and then find out no, they can't, because they need a 60 card deck, so they then have to buy additional cards, additional singles to play. So we've got 1 for each of the shards, I believe. So we've got Bant Exalted, Esper Artifice, Grixis Undead, Primordial Jund, and then Naya Behemoth. The Naya had Spearbreaker Behemoth and Titanic Ultimatum. The Primordial Jund had Flameblast Dragon and Mycolith. The Grixis Undead, Vein Drinker, and Cruel Ultimatum. Master of Ethereum and Sharding Sphinx were in the Esper. And for the Bant Exalted, we have Battle Grace Angel and Knight Captain of Eos. Right. So Wednesday's video... Obviously, I've already got a card pool of 180 cards, and as luck would have it, the pool had Myella in it. I actually had 2 legendary creatures in this particular card pool. There's my Ella and Cedris. So I thought about doing Cedris, but then I realised I have done previous, back in the day I did do like a commander fodder deck, which was like a graveyardy deck, but I fancied doing this because of the 5 power or greater from among them in play. So yeah, large creatures in red, green, white. I do somewhere have a deck I built. It's like a 5 colour beast deck, but it'll be interesting to see with 3 colour beasts in red, green, white, or basically 3 colour creatures that are 5 or greater. So I'm going to be interested to see, once I've pruned this out and we're left with a seed from this particular set, what Architect suggests as including in the deck, and we'll go from there. The boosters, as you'll probably notice, also included now basic lands in them. So as a consequence, in the set there was slightly less commons, because one of the slots was taken up with a basic land. So change around quite a bit here in terms of the pack logistics, whatever you want to call it, in the fact that we had mythics introduced, and still had so we had a rare slot which could have a rare or a mythic in it. Obviously more likely to get a rare over a mythic. We had 3 uncommons and then 10 commons and a basic land slot, as opposed to previously where we had a rare slot, 3 uncommons and 11 commons, unless of course they'd done something wacky with the distribution, as we saw in the in some of the weird blocks, where they were actually sort of manipulating, if you like, the proportions during the sort of future sight period. That's the one I'm thinking of. And then on Friday I'm still in 2 minds what to do here. I've been seduced somewhat by the look of the artwork. I was going to do a video about a certain book I bought over Christmas, which I thought was quite an interesting book. Not Magic the Gathering related, but I'll probably combine the two into one video. Do an artwork and book video. So thanks once again for watching. Have a great rest of the week, and I will see you in the next video. Bye for now.